Hey guys, welcome back for another video. Today I'm going to be showing us a few things that I did to fix the air conditioning system on my 1980 Chrysler Newport. Now 1980 was about close to 40 years ago now. It's definitely an antique car. At least here in Saskatchewan it has to be 1987 or older to be an antique, so it's well within that range. So number one, it is very, very hot today. It's about 30 degrees out at least. It feels like it could even be warmer than that, like 32. And people look like they're dying out in the heat. I know that I am dying out in the heat, and that's why I have my nice sun hat here. Now this car, when I bought it, the air conditioning did not work, obviously. It was an R12 system, so it can be really, really expensive to fix those systems. And if you can fix it yourself, that's great. But bear in mind that these fixes that I used won't work for everybody, because it really depends on what your AC system is doing and how it's behaving. But I hope that I can explain the process that I used to kind of discover what was the issue and then diagnose it and repair it. And now the air conditioning blows super cold. I might even add a bit more refrigerant just to get the pressure up a bit higher to where it's supposed to be. But already it blows really, really cold, which is great. I'll just show you guys the dashboard here too. So when I bought the car, like I say, air conditioning didn't work. What was happening is that I would turn the car on, turn the AC on, and hear the compressor running for a while, for maybe like 10 seconds, start to blow cold maybe, and then it would click off. Clunk, 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 clunk. So that was actually a good sign that the compressor was running and was working. I'll show you guys the compressor up here in a second. I'm just trying to stay out of the sun because it's so freaking hot. So that was a good sign because it means that the compressor was working. Now I had a blue Chrysler Town & Country minivan as well. And that one, I couldn't get the air conditioning compressor to work at all. Now what that ended up being was that the air conditioning solenoid or relay had been taken out because the compressor had failed. So if you can't get the compressor to come on at all, that can be a very bad sign, and I would recommend that you look into it a bit more, especially before you buy the car, if you really want AC. Because if it doesn't work, that's either the compressor doesn't work at all, or somebody disabled the compressor to keep it from catastrophically failing. So after trying to figure that out, what I found is that I was able to get the compressor to, I'll go up to the engine bay actually to show you guys. I was able to get the compressor to run continuously. Right up here is the compressor. I was able to get it to run continuously by hooking it straight onto the battery, and that did work to get it to run nonstop. But the issue that I was encountering then was that, so anyway, that made me think that there was an electrical problem somewhere here in the cabin. So I pulled it all apart, as you can see. Pulled it all apart down there, checked all the issues, and frustratingly, everything appeared to work. So my next thinking was that maybe there's an electrical problem under the hood, because all of this worked except for this switch. I'll show you guys that in a minute, but that did not work. But that doesn't really affect the AC, that's just the fan switch. So the next step after that was that these AC systems use a series of sensors to maintain their pressure in the correct range so that they don't damage themselves. And there's a couple of sensors here. I think this one is probably a temperature sensor and this one is probably a pressure sensor, and they are plumbed into the lines, so they're not easily replaceable without fixing the system. So my thinking was starting to be that maybe something is wrong with these sensors, and if so, the sensors either work by interrupting the circuit or by completing the circuit. So what I was able to do was that to get it to stop from clicking off, what I was able to do was take the pressure sensor and wire the two poles of it together. I'll just show you guys in here. This little pressure sensor has just two little plugs in it, right? So I wired those together and could get the compressor to run continuously. And that can mean one of two things, which is that there's genuinely something wrong with the air conditioning system that's causing the pressure sensor to switch it off, which was a possibility, or that the sensor was bad. By wiring that sensor together, I was able to get the compressor to run continuously. But then if we go back to the cabin, what was happening then is that I could get the air to come cold out of the vents for a little while, but then it would come out hot after a few minutes. So So that means that the air conditioning system was working, which is great, but that something was eventually causing it to stop blowing hot. Now, after doing a bit of research, when air conditioning systems lose pressure, that pressure inside is displaced by air, as far as I understand. And air has humidity as a component. Now, as I was running the air conditioning system, I could tell that certain parts were getting extremely cold, which meant that it was working. But what came up as a possibility was that water was running through here and freezing up and causing the refrigerant to move inefficiently through the lines and eventually cause it to blow hot air. Was that let's get these refrigerant kits. They sell them here in Canada, Red Tech kits. And I saw that somebody sold an AC dehydration treatment. And it sounded like that might be exactly what I wanted. Now, what this treatment does apparently, I believe, is that it says it combines with the water to form a silicone lubricant, which just adds to the lubricating qualities of the air conditioning system. So I thought, well, if I add this, the worst that could happen is that it would add more volume to the air conditioning system, which was likely low. But best case scenario, it would help treat the water that's in there and prevent it from freezing in the lines. And that's exactly what it did. Upon, I installed these little fittings as well to use a modern air conditioning equipment on here, but upon emptying the dehydration treatment into the, I accidentally emptied into the low side, but it ended up working. After emptying it into there, the air conditioning system began to blow cold air continuously without cycling off, even with the sensor connected. So that's how I did it, managed to get it running continuously, which was a big positive. So what that also allowed me to do was to hook up the pressure gauge to the low side port. And what I was then able to determine was that the pressure was low while running continuously at operating temperature and stuff like that. So then we took a can of the just regular Red Tech stuff. It's the R12A, which is compatible with an R12 system, thankfully, and emptied a can of that into there. And after that, it ended up blowing just perfectly cold. It was really a huge difference and able to run continuously. And I've driven around with this car for like an hour since then, and yeah, the air conditioning system does run continuously and blows really cold. I may end up adding a bit more pressure into the system just to get it closer to the spec pressures, which are supposed to be higher, but even as is, it's working really, really well. So I hope you guys can see that the process I used to arrive at this was after observing how the system worked for a little while and checking things and seeing why it wasn't working. So eventually we stumbled upon the cause, which is that number one, there was water in the system, which was causing it to freeze after a couple of minutes, and thereby build up too much pressure and cycle off the compressor as well, I think. And then also the pressure was simply too low at operation, which might have also messed with the pressure sensor there. So that's the core of what we're doing here. I'm going to come back in a moment and show you guys how we're going to fix the HVAC controls in there, because that's kind of a second fable. As it turns out, a couple things weren't working in that, so I'm going to show us how to repair that. All right, guys, we are here in the car. I just confirmed it's 30 degrees. I cannot begin to tell you guys how freaking hot it is in here. So let's test out the AC. I tested it earlier, but and then again, I don't know how you guys are going to really believe me. Like when you, I mean, I don't have a temperature sensor or something to show you guys, but you guys will just have to believe me that it's blowing cold once we start. Okay. All right, so engine started, as you can see. Oh man, I can already feel it. It's so much colder than like the ambient air. Oh man, frick, it's so darn hot today. I don't know if you guys can see me sweating, but it is hot, believe me. Anyway, so I'll show you guys here what I was doing with the HVAC. Like I say, I thought there might have been something wrong with one of these switches, but the one thing I did find that was wrong as I was disassembling it, see, I was pulling this here switch out, and it was like I could hear it cracking, right? And I was like, oh my goodness, like how can I pull this out without cracking it? Like no matter how I tried, it was cracking. So when I took it out, I realized what was wrong, that it had burnt through there. And always while I was using this switch, it had like a lot of dead spots, and it always got really, really hot. and I figured it was just some like poorly designed old switch, but no, it had actually burnt through at some point, so there was something wrong with it. So good thing I pulled this apart anyhow, because I was able to get a standard motor parts replacement. Maybe it wasn't standard motor parts, I forget. Made in Mexico. Anyway, I was able to get a replacement by searching online. Parts Source actually does not have this car hardly on record at all. They don't have any information on its parts or anything. Oh man, that's nice. They don't have hardly any information on the parts for it. So I just searched online as to what part a Chrysler Newport uses for the switch, and I found that several aftermarket companies make it. I think it's the exact same switch as in like certain Dodge Ram trucks and stuff. Alright, it is much colder. You guys can probably hear the fan going. Much colder. AC is working pretty well, and I'm actually not even on max AC right now. If I press that, it kind of spins up the fan a bit faster and runs the AC harder, but it's really good so far. It's so nice to just get out of the sun and get into some AC. So I don't know if I'll film all of this because I have to kind of get in the way of the camera, but I'm going to start to put together the HVAC controls here again, and I'll give you guys a few updates as I go. Hey guys, just a little update. I'd taken apart this component that controls the electrical and vacuum signals to the air conditioning, and the way I had to open it was by popping off the little plastic ends of these little spokes. So to put it back together, I don't want it falling apart obviously again, I just used some Gorilla Glue and put it over each of these individual posts and then pressed on the back, and I'm going to let it dry for about 8 hours before I put any substantial pressure on it. But in the meantime, I'll start to assemble this all again and put it back in place, and I'll show you how that goes in a sec. Hey guys, we're back here. So I finally put this all together. There wasn't really too much to show. I just had to hook up all the little linkages and wires slowly, one at a time, and I put the ashtray assembly all back in there. You know, if you really need to find out how to disassemble like dashboards and stuff, there's probably some good videos, or maybe I can make a video about that someday, but it went back together pretty good, and about to test all of the AC stuff here. So let's give it a try. Let's go to max AC. Just gonna rev it up a little bit, make it a bit easier on the engine. Now I'm actually about to go get some gas soon, so I'll get a good opportunity to test it driving. I wish I could film that, but I don't have my proper tripod that I use for filming like drive around town videos and stuff like that. So maybe I'll add that in later. But yeah, it feels like it's all working. And I tested some of these functions earlier too, like this should be sending, yep, it's sending air up here. So yeah, all the air conditioning functions appear to be working good. So I'm really happy about that. Gonna give it a little drive, and hopefully it runs good. And then I was thinking maybe if all is good, might film a drive around town episode with the Chrysler Newport now that its AC is working. But we'll let you guys know. Thanks for watching the video. Hopefully it was helpful as to how to fix old AC systems. And overall, I'm really impressed with the quality of this car, that after 40 years, the AC system still holds a charge and works really well. And it just hadn't, the issue is not that it was a poor quality system, but it probably hadn't been maintained in a long time and charged. But anyway guys, signing off. See you in the next video.